everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, where here you don't have to be a part of a totalitarian government for us to treat you like kings. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian, and speak for yourself.
Well, if you pay Brian enough, he'll do whatever you say.
Yeah.
That's right. This week, we're talking about one of the best episodes of Parks and Rec. I think it's definitely the best episode of season 2, and that's Sister City.
I think it's tied with Hunting Party, honestly. I think those are the two.
Hunting Party's not bad.
Yeah.
But
this one has Fred Armison.
Yeah, that's why episodes like this or Hunting Party are the reason why, if I tell people, hey, start at season 3 of Parks and Rec, because that's where it really gets good. That's where they found their footing, and they give you a nice recap. But once you do that, definitely go back and watch season 2. Probably season 1 as well, but season 2 for sure.
Yeah, there's also the one episode where Andy Samberg is the yelling, what's it called, the park ranger?
Park ranger. Yeah, that's Andy Samberg. It's pretty much, he has 2 volumes.
Yeah. I like how we started talking about, we're going to talk about this episode. But first, let's talk about other episodes.
At this point, that's to be expected. We're going to take you on an emotional journey through television shows. Hey, speaking of other episodes, okay, so I did have this as one of my questions, but since we're talking about other episodes, this will be a good lead-in. This is an episode that really hinges on its guest star. Fred Armison is fantastic in this role, and he really drives the plot forward. And this is an episode that has very little Ron. It has no Andy, and it doesn't. It has a B plot, but it's really in service to the main plot. And so you could even argue that the B plot isn't even a B plot itself. It's just a character thing. But it's really Fred Armison and Leslie Knope, and they're back and forth. So I wanted to ask you the question, what are some other episodes of TV where the guest star was so present in the episode? Like this episode?
Well, this lends itself to other stunt casting where we're just gonna, like you said, we're gonna bring in this guy and let him do his thing. Yeah. First thing that comes to mind was when Jack Black was on Community.
See, I wouldn't put that in the same tier. Jack Black was great, but I still think there was plenty from the other 6 that it didn't focus around Jack Black. I think another one to me that works is Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Sterling K. Brown, when he was the guest star, and he was like the dentist who murdered, and they knew he murdered someone, but they only had 24 hours or 12 hours or whatever to break him and figure it out.
That's true, because wasn't everyone else besides Jake and Holt basically barely in the episode?
Yeah, they I think there's a couple of them in the stinger at the beginning, or the stinger at the end maybe, and a little bit in the cold open maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I said maybe 3 times in that sentence.
There's not really any Office episodes that I can think of that are like that where everyone completely. I mean, they were great guest stars, but none that completely take over the episode.
Yeah, it's even when Will Ferrell was on, he was probably the closest one to that. You can't call Kathy Bates that because she was a recurring role.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Will Ferrell was too for 3 episodes, but Kathy Bates more so. Yeah, it's hard to come out. You don't have that sort of thing where it's you'll have guys on your episode, or you'll have actors and actresses on your episode, but they're just not that much of the focal point where it's really Fred Armison, this episode lives or dies on him, and obviously he does such a great job.
Yeah. No, I was thinking maybe Alec Baldwin on Friends, but then they had that whole plot, all the other plot line where Monica was trying to make everyone cry and was being awkward. So that really didn't work either.
Yeah, that's a good consideration though. Alec Baldwin really shine. You have to have a big personality too if you're going to be that kind of a take over the episode sort of guy.
Yeah, and also Alec Baldwin and Fred Armisen too are kind of in the category where I just think of that as the one with Alec Baldwin or the one with Fred Armisen. I don't know. Well, I don't know what his character name in Friends was.
Yeah,
and. I mean, Fred Armisen, I know is the guy from Venezuela, but I forget what his name was.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And I just watched the episode.
I know. We'll remember as we're going through it. But one of the ones I just thought of as we were talking about it, you sometimes have these episodes that take a major detour from the action where you might have something like this. For instance, in The Bear with the episode in season 2, Fishes. where we had a lot of stunt casting. There wasn't really one person that stood out in it, but it was just like, yeah, we're going to deviate and just use 3 of our regulars and then all this other stunt casting.
Yeah. True.
But his name was Raul Alejandro Bastilla Pedro de Veloso de Maldonado. I just knew that off the top of my head. I didn't have to look it up or anything.
Of course, we all believe that, Matt. We all believe that.
Thank you.
So
Man,
it's funny,
stupid.
and I watched I didn't watch all of it, but I watched a lot of the commentary of this episode on the DVD. And it's funny because it's Fred Armison and Amy Poehler and Mike Schur and one of the writers. And I suppose I could give him a name, Alan Yang, the only person I didn't name.
And this one guy, no one really cares about.
But it's halfway through, Fred Armison's like, "All right, guys, I gotta go," and then they bring in Raul in character to like do the second half of the commentary as his character. And he's like, I wanted a separate booth so that I didn't have to be with any of you guys. And it just like gets right back into character and it works really well.
Yeah, this episode is really good. So the whole plot of the episode, if you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it. Even if you have never watched Parks and Rec, you probably didn't click on this episode. If you don't watch a certain show, you're probably not going to watch an episode that is about one single episode. But anyway, do yourself a favor, go rewatch this episode. It's fantastic. But the whole plot is Leslie is greeting, and the rest of the Parks Department is greeting a delegation from the Parks Department in certain, I think it's Baragua, Venezuela, their sister city. And so they are expecting that they're going to be this, because it's an impoverished nation. They're expecting that they're going to have these poor government employees show up, and they're going to, cater to them, and then also to show off the town a little bit and all that sort of stuff. It gets turned on its head right away because even though it's an impoverished country, the government does what governments do best and steals from all the people and just lets like all the government workers really reap the benefits and live like the 1%. And so they actually are very wealthy. And the whole idea after that little flip is that they are just subtly, or well, maybe not so subtly at certain points, mocking Leslie, the Parks Department, and all of Pawnee, and really all of America.
Yeah. Because at one point he's like, they bring him to a park. Yes, this is an embarrassment.
I can see why you'd want to fill this pit. No, this is one of our best parks. So, let's go one by one through the episode. So we start off with the group awaiting the delegation. Leslie's getting them all together, giving them the plans, the photo op with the mayor the next day, telling Tom to pick out what he's going to wear, even though he's going to wear gold sequined sweatpants, and just warning them about the poor, impoverished nation of Venezuela. Yeah.
There's a deleted scene where Leslie goes to Ron, and he's like, "Ron, she's doing the hard sell. I really think that I should be the one to run this meeting with the Venezuelans." And Ron's like, "Sure, no problem." But she doesn't hear that. She's like, "See, I think I really should because they're the deputy director. I'm the deputy director." It's like, absolutely. And it's like, "You see, Ron, I think it's good." Like she keeps selling it, and he does not care. And it's a really, I mean, I can see it's probably not a needed scene. You probably figured that Ron wouldn't care, but it's funny how that keeps going.
Yeah, I get cutting that episode that scene because they want to get into the action. They want to get Armison and the rest of the group there. But they do have a talking head before the cold open of Leslie in front of the mural and talking about the history of Pawnee and welcoming foreign visitors. Cut to the mural, or pan to the mural, shows a deadly disaster last time that they introduced some foreigners. So she's like, well, things have definitely changed. They're going to stay in a motel for sure. We go to the title credits and then jump into the episode where Leslie is asking April if she speaks Spanish and making sure that that's good as they're waiting. And April does. One of my favorite April lines of all time is in this episode right after that. What is it, Brian? You know what it is.
Oh, I just watched it. Is it one of the Spanish lines?
No, it's talking ahead of her. She says, "Yeah, my mom's Puerto
Oh
Rican.
yeah,
Why I'm so lively and colorful." And of course, Aubrey Plaza delivers it with that deadpan Wednesday Addams energy that she's known for.
and in this they change April a little bit. In this early on, she really was very like monotone, no attitude. Whereas later on, she has some attitude and some tone to her, but she's like actively like disinterested and like actively trying to be a chaotic element. Whereas now it's like she doesn't care. It's a subtle difference, but that we are in early April territory.
She gets more
Pre-Andy.
personality when she marries a golden retriever, to be fair.
That's true. And this is I don't even think Andy and April had even been hinted at this yet. This early.
No, not this early. Yeah, because he's still. Yeah, season 2 is when they start hinting at it, but Andy is still pining after Anne, even though she's with Mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and later on, you completely forget that Andy was with Anne.
Yeah. I think they lampshade that in one episode where he's like, "Oh, that's right. We dated once. I totally forgot."
Yeah.
So as they're waiting for the delegation to arrive, we get another talking head with Leslie as she's going through her itinerary of how do you fill a 48-hour visit of Pawnee. Goes through the different places that she had to cut off the rock and roll bowling alley from their itinerary. This is one of the most difficult phone calls I've ever had to make.
Which we later on, I just realized now you're saying it, way later on when Leslie is running for council, we see a bowling alley in Pawnee, but it's not a rock and roll bowling alley. It's just a regular bowling alley. Maybe the name is just rock and roll bowling alley, and that's it.
Maybe Pawnee doesn't really quite understand rock and roll. I mean, they're not too far from Ohio, so they should have a sense of it, but
that would be a very Pawnee thing.
All right. The delegation arrives and they introduce themselves. We get a couple of the ongoing gags. So there's a couple things that I really love about this episode. The way they treat Tom, the way they treat Donna, both of those are absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So first thing they do is they address Tom. They don't address him. They just call him the servant boy and expect him to collect their bags. And he's like, "What did he call me?" And Leslie, "It's a different culture. Just shut up." But what's great as this episode or as this scene plays out, once they give him the big tip to go take their bags, because, obviously especially as a person of color, you're not going to want to be associated with as the servant boy. That's an offensive thing. As soon as they whip the money out, then he's like, "Okay, I'll do this for you." And I think that's actually a really funny, it's not, like the satire that Parks and Rec has, because it definitely has some things that do address culture, but it doesn't go hard into it. It doesn't get preachy into it. It doesn't even really draw like this is how you should feel. It's just, it jokes about it. Like the birth certificate that Leslie had back when it was a big deal that Obama showed his birth certificate. So to have this kind of brought up of like this idea, there's this offensive line and this moral indignation you have, and then all of a sudden someone waves the money and like, I'll be the butt of whatever if you're just going to pay me this sort of thing. I think that's a really clever idea to throw like some water on that sort of like racial indignation sort of thing, and just really the question. And it's hard for us white people to ask this question of ourselves, but as a person of color, like how far do you go? Be like, "Oh, well, if you're gonna give me like a ton of money, I don't care how much I debase myself." So it's really funny to see Tom completely abandon his morals at the drop of a hat.
So I got two things on that. First, I think it's interesting that even though it's out of context, I can say this is the one where Matt said, "As a person of color."
I'm saying if you are a person of color.
I know. I think out of context too. I love the scene later where Tom's like, "I'm going to make it rain," and like throws the money out. He's like, "Okay, I'm actually going to pick this all up here." And he bends down to pick it up.
And I think this easily could have been a joke that went too far, and they definitely didn't go too far with that at all. And instead, it just becomes hilarious to see the difference from Tom like being upset at the beginning and then just really acclimating into this role where at the very end of the episode, like the last time he does this, he's like begging for stuff to get them. And there's a scene with Leslie when she's there and she's present. He's like, "Can I get you guys a drink?" And Leslie's like, "Yeah, I'll get a drink. Root beer. Yeah, I'll take that. Lemonade. Sure." And like just listing all these options. And Leslie keeps like trying to take advantage of this. And Tom's just not giving her the time of day.
Yeah. It just goes to show, always tip big.
Exactly. That's how you got to do it.
Yeah. And then you mentioned Donna, like right away, they assume that all the women there are like, just, oh, I can pick whichever woman I want, which is, you don't think too hard about what that implies for their country, but it's just, the thing is like, everyone keeps picking Donna, and Donna's just like, yes, I did very well in Venezuela. I'm not surprised.
This is a great joke that I actually don't think would work as well now, because I think there is a little bit more of like a person like Donna. You see a lot more people like that now. Like I've seen on TV a number of these we're gonna just say it again. A number of these characters as people of color. No, this like big black woman character who is confident in her body, and we didn't have as much of this back when this episode was on, so I think that makes this stand out for her to just be like fully embracing this, and for them also to be like, yeah, Donna's the one we want, and like unanimously, obviously Donna is the prize versus all these girls that could like fit in your pocket. You know, there's a lot of like sticks of there. Aubrey Plaza and is Anne in the scene there too?
Yeah, Rashida Jones, because later on Anne says something, and then the guy's like, "I changed my mind. I will now have you for the evening." And she's like, "Oh boy." Like, Anne doesn't do much, but she's around.
Yes, which really describes her character in the whole show.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, I like Anne as a character, and she does well when she's the straight man to Leslie.
Yeah,
but she's, I think, out of the 10 main characters, not including Mark, she is the least interesting of the 10.
Yeah. But this episode has some of my I like what they do with Donna, and I really just find that so funny that it's a given for all of them that Donna is the most desirable, and so it was a good moment for body positivity way back in 2008, 9 when this came out.
I think the show came out in 9. This is early on, so probably 9, maybe 10.
Yeah,
but and then is this early on when they talk to Mark and they give him crap about the city planning? Or
they did. Who would plan this on purpose?
It's like, I saw a tattoo parlor next to a school, next to a Taco Bell. By the way, these are the accents they're doing, so we're not being racist.
We're just, you and me, we're just really towing that line so far in this episode. We'll get more PC probably, maybe. Who knows?
Probably not. I mean, there was an episode where I kept making Matthew Perry death jokes.
I felt like that was only the one.
Well, yeah, there was the one episode, but there was multiple jokes in that episode.
Well, there you go. Well, speaking of being across the line, I really enjoy Leslie's delivery of, there might have been a translation problem. When I said party, I meant one that did not include sex for pay, but one that had food and drink and dancing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember who asked this, but someone in that little interchange at the beginning there, they ask, so what kind of birds do you eat? And
chickens.
Us too. Amazing. just a great, like, we have nothing in common. What's the small talk? What birds you eat?
Yeah,
I love it.
It kind of goes to kind of the same energy as that old SNL skit with Chris Farley when he's like, "Hey, do you remember when you sang that song? That was cool." It was Paul McCartney, right?
Yeah, he had the Chris Farley show for a couple. I think I remember Jeff Goldblum was on there for one of them.
Okay. I just remember the Paul McCartney one.
Yeah, but that's a good gag. Chris Farley, rest in peace, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that ends out the end of that scene is going back to Tom, where they bring him out like a cup of water, and he's like, no, bottled, like refuses drink this disgusting tap water. So Tom doesn't want to do it, flashes the money like, oh, okay, I'll go get it. Then we go to the gift that they give, the gold-plated gun from Hugo Chavez that he used when he did his revolution. I like for Armison's line, this gun no, I think this is maybe Leslie's. This gun truly symbolizes the blossoming peace between our two nations.
And I'll jump in. This is another deleted scene where it was a whole clearly improvised talking head of Fred Armisen, and he's like talking about Ron. He's like, as soon as I saw Ron, he had the same mustache as Chavez. That is such a glorious, thick mustache. He must be the one in charge. And it's going like, I don't have a mustache like that. I don't deserve a mustache like that yet. And how like they were that's why they're so enamored with Ron, because of his mustache and how he must be just like, Hugo Chavez.
To be fair, they have a point.
Yeah.
I wish I could grow a mustache like that. If I could, I would. But if I grow out a mustache, I just look like I shouldn't be allowed within a certain amount of distance from a school. So,
yeah, it has been a good 10 years since I've been clean shaven. But I remember the last time that whenever I was shaving my whole face, I would always do my mustache last just for fun. But then I would just shave it off. I never pulled it off.
I had one time where it grew out just a little bit longer than what I usually do. So then when I was shaving, I shaved it into Fu Manchu. And then I had that on for just about like an hour. And like, I don't think I left the house, but I was like around, I think I was at my parents' house at that time. And I just walked downstairs and my parents were like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, nothing. What's going on?
Matt, I'm trying to remember. Have you ever had facial hair since I've known you?
I've had like kind of some scruff. I can't grow like a full beard because it doesn't match from my like goatee area up into the sideburns. So if anything, I would grow out a goatee, but I don't like how goatees look, and I don't think it would look good on me.
Okay.
No offense to anyone out there with a goatee, Mom.
Don't tell her, Mom, and not me, who's had one for 10 years.
My mom obviously doesn't have a goatee, obviously. Yeah. All right, getting back to stuff. She doesn't listen to this anyway, but just like on the one off chance to get this to call, like, what did you say? You're grounded from podcasts. All right, so then they talk about the gift giving, and in return, Pawnee gives things that are that represents their local country or local culture. And so they get the huge bottle of high fructose corn syrup from the Sweetums factory and a big bag of the rubber baby bottle nipples.
Yeah. And
this is when we start getting the sense that the delegation from Venezuela really is not having it. So Fred Armisen delivers everything with a smile on his face, and he gives his like acknowledgement speech of, we too are pleased to be here in your dirty alleyway.
Yep.
Thank you for the container of sap and the bag of garbage. And just smiling through it. I love
he's saying it politely. And so like Leslie, you think maybe he's getting his words wrong, but like then you clearly like, no, he knows exactly what he's saying.
We are also sister cities with Kaesong, North Korea. Their town is far nicer.
Yeah.
We haven't been here for a long time, but what we have seen is really, from the bottom of our hearts, truly depressing. Yeah. Really, really sad stuff.
I think reading it straight is a smarter move, because if he was being super exaggerated, it wouldn't land as hard.
Yeah. It's the physical demeanor of someone that is being honored and appreciative of the diplomacy that they're having. But again, the words are just awful and really, maybe not awful, but they're bad. They're insulting. To compare America to North Korea and say we're worst, that's not very nice.
Yeah.
So this whole time we're going back and forth with Leslie, and in her talking head is like, oh, he doesn't mean he's being insulting, and then realize, okay, maybe he is a little bit, but it's a different country. And then even have the Hillary Clinton joke of no one can take a punch like her. Goes back again. They're just saying it's funny because Antonio said to me, can we turn this car around and say we're sick or something, or that we lost our way? Of course, that'd be rude to you. And then, okay, I think that was the end of that scene, because then they kind of go to the crowd, and there's Anne and Mark. And the little bit we have of Mark in this episode, we already talked about this, the city planner.
Yeah,
joke.
because he says, "I'm the city planner," and that's like, "Oh, this city was planned," and that's when he says he saw the school, the Taco Bell tattoo parlor. He says like it looked like it was designed by a very stupid rodent, and I think Anne says something like, "I think he's a smart rodent," or something like that.
Yes. And that's where I'll have you for the night. Oh. After this, we get just a small detour. I think the only real content of Ron in this episode, outside of that deleted scene, was his little talking head with the gun. And fun fact, we actually get his little
Scene.
clip for the following seasons in the opening. So whenever they give like the Nick Offerman in the title card sequence, we see him with Chavez's gun, like aim it at the corner, like he's going to use it to shoot.
Now, do they change that? Because some of them, about halfway through, they change them. I'm not sure.
They changed that in third season. That's when that's when we get it. Is that season?
Okay, so it wasn't the original one.
The first two are him like actually from season one in a suit and like looking a lot more formal, which they had him more so in the first season be that way.
Yeah, in the first early on, they had Ron in suits and Tom not in suits, and then they switched those.
Correct. That's true. Yeah, this works better, and in fact, it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Did that wardrobe change happen when Ron took Tom's fake wife?
Huh? Maybe. I forgot about Ron and Wendy.
Look at that. Just nostalgia, bringing you back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about Wendy. She wasn't. That was a good storyline to drop.
It would have been interesting if Wendy herself was an interesting character, but she wasn't.
That is very true. All right. So after all that talk, they Fred Armison. I'm going to continue saying Fred Armison instead of his character because it's a mouthful. So Fred Armison comes up to Leslie, asks about the itinerary, and his big point of interest, the one thing he wants to see where the children are fed the sweeteners.
Yeah.
The American children are fattened more efficiently than any other children in the world.
It's like they're little, what is the key? Like they make some jokes to them, like they're like little chunksters, or I'm not sure if they say chunksters, but they've been
little porkers, little basketballs.
It's funny, like, they always talk about how Pawnee is such a fat city, but whenever they do the town meetings, it just looks like average citizens. It's not like you would expect it to be like that one episode of Family Guy where Peter holds the fat guy meetings.
Yeah,
that's the way they describe Pawnee. But whenever you see Pawnee, it's not like that.
Yeah, that's true. There's the one guy at the city meetings with the glasses and the little facial hair who's like as thin as a rail. He looks like he's underfed.
Yeah.
But then they do continue the tour. Leslie shows them the thermometer to raise the $35,000 for the pit that they're trying to turn into a park.
Yeah.
And this just does not commute with Venezuela. They don't understand the idea of a budget, never had a budget shortage. That's when they explained that Venezuela is blessed with massive oil reserves. The state sells the oil, keeps the money, and the government does with whatever they want. And so then Leslie jokes, well, now I don't understand.
And this is my favorite part. Go ahead.
Fred Armisen just stares. I feel that my English was very clear.
Yeah.
Shall I repeat? And then just so patronizing.
Yeah.
Venezuela, Venezuela, my country, has a lot of
points
oil.
His patch. He's like doing visual things, yeah.
Oil is food for cars. And she's just staring daggers at him.
By the way, there's also a deleted scene where Fred Armisen is talking about all the different badges he gets because he's wearing like a military jacket with all these different things. He's like, and it's just ridiculous things. Like this one is for looking at this one is just for looking at leaves. It's looking at leaves. This one is for injured in the line of duty. A bird flew into my mouth. And it's just like, I forget what all the rest of them were, but there's ridiculous reasons that you would get all of these like commendations. It looks like he came back from a, overseas military tour.
And I'm sure that a scene like that, or the infamous straight to jail scene, I'm sure at a point they're like, okay, you got the lines we wanted you to get. Give us some more. You do something, Fred. You are that talented of a comedian. We want to hear where you go.
Yeah. And so, we'll make sure we go through those when that scene comes up.
Yes, absolutely. Because you probably know, you said that you did a little bit of research into some of the background stuff. I'm sure they commented on what lines might have been improvised by Fred, or
I
what
think they
lines.
basically just told them the concept, and he improvised all of it. I think, and they said, "Give
Really?
us." Unless I remember it wrong. I mean, because I was kind of half listening and half doing other things, but I know that if not all of it, most of it was improvised. They just kind of let him go.
I'll continue on to the pivot that they decide. Leslie says, "Okay, they're full of themselves. We need to blow their socks off. We're going to take them to our best park." And Tom's not. I don't think they're going to blow their socks off. So
I
she
thought it
just
was April, or was it Tom? One of them said, "Yeah, that's not going to
was it
blow their
April.
socks off." It was either April or Tom.
I don't have it written down who said what, but yeah, one of the naysayers, for good reason, said that. And so she kind of spirals a little bit. You know how Leslie gets into that manic energy. We'll go further to Chicago and pretend it's part of Pawnee, or New York, or London. Well, the money's different. They'll figure it out. Never mind.
You don't realize that you said that Andy's not in this episode. I think the perfect use of Andy in this episode would be if Andy just didn't get at all that they were being condescended to. He's like, "Oh, that's awesome! Look, this is a great," and they're very laying it on as thick as they are, and Andy just has no idea that they're making fun of them. That's where you would put Andy in this.
That is great usage of his character, and 100% in line with that, and would create some good comedic moments. I approve. Brian, you go back in time and rewrite the episode.
I think Chris Pratt needs to be in this one.
Guys, I know with a contract it doesn't have him, but you need to shove him in there somehow. Get him to play Mouse Rat for Venezuela. All right, so they decide to go to the park. They all pile in a car. One of our first, really the biggest sight gag of the episode was Leslie in the front seat. Everyone doing okay back there? Pans to the three in the back, just shoved like on top of each other, pretty much in the back seat.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've all been in cars like that.
Yes, but especially now knowing like they probably get limos everywhere they go, and just like the nicest transportation and everything, and how low this must be for them. In fact, their conversation turns to how great things are, and like, oh well, the motel we're putting you up in is really nice. You can watch TBS. Do you have TBS in Venezuela? I have everything in Venezuela. I have 4 satellite dishes, 14,000 channels. Oh, and then one of my favorite jokes on this, that we already know who wins Project Runway.
Yeah.
I'm coming to your house then. I see what you're getting at. I'm still interested in the big black woman.
That's right. I forgot that they brought that back.
Of course. That's the thread.
And this is where they go to the park, and they think that it's the pit. They think, "You're right. Yeah. You were right to want to correct this and make this into a park."
Yeah, because in their town they have a monorail, an aquarium. They have a lot of different stuff. What's like Lady Gaga played there? They said,
and Leslie's like, "Well, we don't have Lady Gaga, and she probably won't come here unless that her career takes a turn for the worst."
But we have something more beautiful than Lady Gaga: democracy. So then we decide to go to the town hall meeting. And before they get into like the tragic nature of the meeting, we have another visit from Tom. Pops in. He got candy bars for everyone. I really like his Nestle Crunch with all the crispy rice removed. Weird choice, but okay.
Yeah, that is. Even to think about logistically, that would be impossible to have that resembling a coherent candy bar afterwards. So
yeah, seriously.
So the fact that took a lot of detail work. That's like he should be a surgeon with that kind of dexterity.
But even though it's a throwaway gag, it does also speak a little bit to when Tom wants money, he puts his whole heart into something. And so he did do that as a businessman. He cared so much about even the littlest details. So this is 100% in line with his character, even if it is probably physically impossible for him to actually get all of that Rice Krispies out.
Yeah. And I'll say it when we get to it. This is, I think my last deleted scene note is from the town hall meeting, but I'll get to it when we get to it.
Sure. I really like some of that, like the give and take here, and just the unsaid things, because Leslie's still trying to be cordial, and it's like our location rotates of our meetings. Sometimes we have it here or the volleyball courts, and then Fred Armison just like sits there, just like he's ready to brag about it. And so Leslie just sighs and gives in. Where do you hold your meetings? Well, now that you asked, we usually rotate as well. Fortresses and citadels and palaces.
Which that reminds me of the joke in The Good Place where like Tahani talks about the Airbnbs, like it's palaces because it's HEIRBNB. It's like that same kind of energy.
Yeah. So I think this is a good cut here of we don't need palaces. The ideas are what shine in our meeting. Cut to what are you, a moron? And the hand dryers and the bathrooms. There's too many sanitary paper towels.
And this is where the guy is throwing frisbees at her.
Yes.
Is that different? Yeah.
How you like that? Now imagine you're holding coffee.
Yeah. And this is where the lady comes in, and this is the lady who comes in all the time with ridiculous things, and she's like, there was a sandwich in one of your parks, and I want to know why I didn't have mayonnaise on it. And I think it's smart just to cut it there. Yeah. But there's a whole exchange where Tom is getting into it with her and arguing with her. She was saying it has to have mayonnaise for it to be a sandwich, and Tom's like, "Oh really? Oh really? What about peanut butter jelly? Does that eat mayonnaise?" She's like, "Well, I don't eat those." It's like, "Oh yeah, I'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Hold the mayo." "Oh wait, we don't need to hold the mayo because it's ridiculous to put mayo on that sandwich."
Look at Tom getting a little bit more to do besides being the servant boy. Yeah, well done.
It's funny, but it's like it's going too much. Like you don't need to explain the joke. Like just her saying, "I don't know why I didn't have mayonnaise on it." That's all you needed. I mean, it was funny to see him go off and rant at her, but it's good that it was cut.
I don't think even the concept of the sandwich joke was in there. There was a different comment of my dog went to one of your parks and ate another dog's feces, and I'm going to sue you for that. Yeah, we didn't have the sandwich one at that moment, so they had the whole sandwich idea in the deleted scenes as well as the playing it out.
I thought in the episode there was the little bit about I want to know why it didn't have mayonnaise on it. I thought that was in there. Or was that deleted?
I don't see it in this transcript I'm looking at, but at the same time, this isn't like an official transcript, so who knows?
Oh, so you don't even have the official transcript. So I mean,
it might not. It's some guys like Gmail, but I'm like, hey, if this can help me as my notes, then sure.
Wait, did this guy say that you needed to send him money so that he could, come back and be a Nigerian prince?
No, he's just trying to raise money for a park.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Nice guy. All right,
and this is where you get the famous scene, right?
To jail. This is the pinnacle of the episode, and definitely the most quotable part, and is a lot of fun to just drop in conversations and reference this. So go ahead, Brian.
Well, you have it in front of you. You have the transcript. So what do you want to go through the list? Because I might miss some if I try to.
So starts normal. You shout like that, they put you in jail right away. No trial, no nothing. Journalists, we have a special jail for journalists. Yeah. You're stealing, right to jail. Cut me off whenever if you want to say anything about any of these.
Yeah. Well, this thing says at one point he says no trial, no nothing, just straight to jail.
Yep. Now then it gets into now this is going to start devolving. You're playing music too loud, right to jail right away. You're driving too fast, jail. Slow, jail. Yeah. You're charging too high price for sweaters, glasses, you right to jail.
Yeah, and this is where it's like, this is where he had the dentist comment. This is my favorite. Like you make an appointment with a dentist and you don't show up, jail. We have the best patients in the world because of jail.
You missed one, and this was I would have remembered this even without the transcript. You undercook fish, believe it or not, jail. Overcook chicken, also jail. Undercook, overcook.
But is it the opposite? What if you overcook the fish and undercook the chicken? Are you okay?
I think so. By these rules, it seems like you're all right.
All right, sounds good. And you know what? Cooking beef, free for all. Do whatever you want.
Within reason, you can still be victim to salmonella. No, salmonella is chicken. Is E. coli beef?
I think so. Yeah.
There we go. If you want to, if you're pedantic like that and we're wrong and you want to correct us, feel free. Give us a shout out. Actually, it's Streptococcus myosin. All right. So this is where it kind of comes to a head where they're upset, and the Venezuelans are saying, this is just terrible. It's awful meeting. And like, well, that's one perspective. And so, well, in Venezuela, government moves like hot knife through butter, and they treat us like kings. We're rock stars. We answer to no one. And so this is Leslie holding to, even though, sure, you have all these great perks as a government employee in a true democracy, the input of the citizens is extremely valuable. Yeah. And then we get the guy in the background. Hey, lady, these pretzels suck.
Yeah.
See, thank you for that.
Yeah. And of course, it's like you get that the people in this meeting are being ridiculous, but you also get Leslie's side that you want people to be free and be able to actually express themselves instead of just putting everyone in jail who disagrees with you.
Yeah. I do like that their perspective, you look at any totalitarian government and it's not good. You're not wishing that for your citizens. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of oppression, but the benefits you can talk about are the government stuff. They can build giant, amazing things. They have a lot of times some great order to stuff, but at what cost? And so, yeah, of course, someone who's in the Venezuelan government is going to come in and be like bragging about, look at these amazing amenities and all this stuff that we can create and do that America doesn't do. But it's like, well, yeah, in America, we have freedom and you can yell at a government employee without worrying about getting shot or put in jail.
Yeah, true.
But it is also cool. Like, I do like Leslie also highlighting, even though they don't have like an amphitheater at their local park. She's like, nothing gets done. Tell that to Golden Gate Bridge or American Idol or the moon. Oh, wait, you can't because you've never been.
Yeah. And that kind of shut him up for a second there.
Yeah. But he brings that. He's like, look, this isn't personal. We just think that you're weak and your city is disgusting.
Yeah.
And so then he's kind of still making fun of her, and she's like, well, I think your medals are stupid and your uniform is lame, and here you go, here's what sets him off. Mm-hmm. And you guys want to marry Hugo Chavez. Do not respect Chavez. Stupid Chavez.
And he's like, well, I just told you not to. You did. Like, he's not used to anyone keeping him in check or disagreeing with him at all.
Exactly. And that's the one thing you don't do. You don't disrespect Chavez to the Venezuelans, because not only, is he going to get you killed, but he's also the government's sugar daddy. He does get them what they want. Yeah.
And is this where it goes into the speech, or or is there a beat that we're missing?
There's a beat that we're missing, because she does, I forgot when I said, like, oh, this is the last we saw of Ron. She does go back to Ron. This is the other thing that he has to do in this episode, is to talk her down. But of course he does it in a typical Ron fashion where he doesn't really talk. He just, lets her go. And so she comes in, they're jerks and I lost my cool, but they deserved it. So, he gives her a pragmatic solution. Okay, I'll call the mayor and cancel the photo op. No, don't. Then call the Venezuelans and apologize. No, they were rude. And okay, then I'll call the mayor and cancel the photo op. No, don't do that. He stops. Do you see the problem here?
Yes, but I don't want to. And I think we should just real quick, even though it's not that interesting, the only B plot, which will come back in the tag of the episode, is that one of these government, their intern, is basically trying to get April to date him. And they're always talking in Spanish, and he's coming on to her. It's really nothing that interesting about it, as this happens throughout the episode until the very end. But we should mention that for later.
Correct. And for some reason, my transcript doesn't have those, because I got to this point, I'm like, we haven't had any mention of April and this guy. And my guess is that maybe they're only speaking in Spanish when they're talking. And that this transcript guy's like, I don't know Spanish, so I'm just only going to write the English parts.
Yeah, you think they would at least write speaks in Spanish, which they mentioned on the commentary that Aubrey Plaza is bilingual, which I kind of figured based on this episode because she's speaking flawless Spanish.
Yeah. Well, we assume it's flawless. Do you speak Spanish? Do you know it's flawless? Brian?
See?
Oh, man. You got me. I did not expect you to whip that out.
I got a D in Spanish in high school, so that was 20 years ago. I got a D. Yeah, I think I'm fine.
I got an A in Spanish, or as the Espanolis say, I got an A with an accent. I did call them Espanolis.
Yeah.
We're just gonna get so much hate mail for this episode. Like, you guys, you're kind of stupid. All right,
By now, then they're the stupid ones.
So Leslie's going to bury the hatchet with him, calls him to the table. We already mentioned the beginning of this scene with Tom trying to get them something, offering them snacks and drinks and all the things they got and ignoring Leslie completely. So Leslie is apologizing, and they also took a little responsibility themselves. They're like, "Oh, we're sorry. We're just a little bit jealous. Our colleagues from Caracas are visiting their sister city of Miami. They've been partying with Dwayne Wade, and so they're all jealous because they're in Miami having a fun time, and these guys are in Pawnee. Which, to be fair, I'd be jealous too.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh, it's so good, and they're showing us these pictures, and they're really nice, and the food is spicy and wonderful. But Pawnee is really good as well.
Yeah.
So then they really want to bury the hatchet. They got the $35,000 check to give to Leslie for the park. So they're gonna present it to her at the photo op later, and so she's really happy about it. And she's a little nervous because, it's a foreign government and doesn't want it to look like, it like dirty money. And so she kind of does her own little spiral of pros and cons. But she runs the pros and cons with the group. And so they're like, well, we can fill in the pit. Pro, we could fill in the pit. Con, it's dirty money. Pro, $35,000 worth of dirty money. Con, not quite sure why that's a pro.
Yeah. Was that Tom that was saying the $30,000 of dirty money?
I think so. Anne had something to con. I think Anne was the first one who said, pro, we could fill in the pit.
Yeah. Anne, I think that Anne is the most logical, but the least interesting.
Yeah. Pro and con never works. Pro, yes, it does.
He's so proud of himself. He's like, yeah, I got you on that one.
And Leslie is grappling with this. She's frustrated. She's going to take the money, but doesn't like the way she feels bad about how she's getting it. So she ends with a great little, fine. Everybody happy? Jerry, are you happy? And he's, what did I do?
Is that the only thing that Jerry has in this whole episode?
I think he has something at the beginning too, if I remember. I can't remember exactly what his line was.
Yeah. This episode is very light on Jerry.
It is. To be fair, there's a lot of episodes that are light on Jerry with a couple of comments or one or two, but
yeah, Jerry. I mean, out of the 10, he's easily the least main. Him and Donna are like the least prominent.
Yeah, and I think this is still at the point too. And later in second season and third season, they really make him happy-go-lucky, whereas early on, they kind of make him a little bit more sad sack government type.
Yeah.
And then when he leans into like the happy-go-lucky part, that makes him a much more interesting character instead of just being the whipping guy. Because if he can just, all these jokes and shots bounce off of him, you feel okay laughing at him as well. And I think that's an important thing as an audience member.
Well, so just to talk about, have you ever heard of the podcast Parks and Recollection?
I haven't.
It's even though it's been going on for, I think, over 3 years now, it's a Parks and Rec rewatch podcast. They're only on season 5 now. So it's because it's a wild ride of a podcast, because it started out with Rob Lowe and Alan Yang, one of the writers. And it's just like, Office Ladies and all them, they're going through, they did like the first 3 seasons, and then they just stopped. And the podcast just disappeared off the face of the earth. And then like all of a sudden a year later, they're like, hey, look, here comes season 4. And it's, Rob Lowe and them, but it's with Jim O'Hare, who plays Jerry, and a different writer. And they're like passing the torch. Like, we're not going to do it anymore. It was Rob Lowe. Now it's Jim O'Hare. It's a different writer. It's a duo of them. And now it's those two picking up from season 4, going through Parks and Rec. And then the strike happened, and then they stopped again. And then like for that whole couple months, and then now they picked up again. So it's like they keep having, like, if they had just done 1 week at a time without all these breaks, they probably would have been done by now, because the show's been going on for a long time. But now, because of all these breaks and changing the cast, now they're back to having it just be only in season 5. And when Rob Lowe took passed the reins to Jim O'Heir, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll come back for guest appearances, no problem." He hasn't been back.
Of course not. Yeah, I'll come back. It's fine. Get out of here.
Yeah.
All right, back to the episode. One of the last big moments here. So the climax of the episode is they got the $35,000. She's going to be receiving it, and the photo op with the mayor. The mayor's not there yet because we find out later seasons the mayor is actually Bill Murray, and he's only in for one episode in his eulogy. But she's waiting for the mayor to arrive, and they give the check. And she's still saying, "I feel it's hard about this money, but okay, it's going to do a lot of good." So they have a camera to film to take home to their country, Venezuela. And so then one of the stipulations says, "Okay, well, look at the camera, maybe say Viva Venezuela," and she's Viva Venezuela, Viva Chavez, and she's not okay with that because, of course, Chavez is the dictator. He is the one that's oppressing his people. So she gives a thank you, Venezuela. And so then there's the interchange of trying to get her to say Viva Chavez. It's like, he gave you $35,000. It's worth at least one Viva.
Mm-hmm. And she does. She gives him a slight kind of like Viva Chavez. Like,
yeah. And
very reluctant.
He has the clap, and he's excited. He doesn't have the clap. I hope not. He claps. This episode, I swear. If we were monetized,
we've had worse episodes.
This episode would get us demonetized. All right. Do you have any Matthew Perry death jokes to make? So then they start talking in Spanish, and they're addressing the camera, and so then Leslie, curious to hear what they're talking about, goes over to resident interpreter April and asks her, and she says, "Well, he's saying that there is a success for their committee, the committee to humiliate and shame America." So then Leslie realizes the weight of what she's done. And so then when they turn back to her, that she's already mad, she's already not having it. And they just, "Well, why don't you name your park after Chavez? You call it Hugo Chavez Park. You can have a nice big fountain of his head so that when the water is coming out, he's spitting at you all the time." And she's just glaring at him and just, "You should write this down."
Yeah. And he doesn't get that she's angry because she thinks that everyone, either he doesn't get it or he doesn't care.
Yeah. And so she tears up the check and says, "No, I'm going to do this my own way," which is great. That's a great Leslie moment. Leslie, It has the right attitude. We're going to do this the right way, even though she's already said the Viva Chavez, so she's already been humiliated. They're going to just play it anyway, so you might as well get the money out of it. But whatever.
And she does like the Viva Pawnee, Viva Ron Swanson, Viva Mayor Walter Gunderson.
Exactly. And she's yelling. She's like, "We're not going to name it Hugo Chavez Park. We're not going to have a fountain shaped like his head, spitting water on everyone. And then, unless that's what the people want, because that's democracy." And I'm like, that's great. That's a great way to end it, because that is really what Pawnee's about. That's what Leslie's about. It's just a great reminder of her principles, and that she probably should have still taken the money, in my opinion, and it would have been okay to do that. Completely fine. But at the end of the day, she's principled, and you respect her for that.
Yeah.
So that's the end of that part. Cut to the credits. Well, actually, it's cut to the commercial, because when it comes back, there's the post-credit stinger, or I think I keep using words wrong, but there's that little end cap that they have of a video sent from April. And she's, "Hey guys, I'm down in Puerto Rico, and this is with the intern Johnny," and shows his place, because he's just an intern, but still, interns get made. He's got a mansion in Venezuela, and she's like, "It has like 5 million rooms, and this is only his guest house.
Like, it's better than here." I love that. "It's better than my mom's house, I guess."
Oh, and Donna's here too.
Hola.
And that's where we end it. So that is Sister City. Anything we missed, Brian?
Probably. I mean, this episode, if you didn't watch it, which again, I'm sure most people listening to this episode have watched it, we don't do justice to the comedic performance of Fred Armisen, because he sells it. Like, this part with somebody else playing it wouldn't be as funny. Because
Yeah.
he plays it so straight. He is completely sure of himself. He does not get the humor at all. And he just thinks that he is the greatest person in the world. And you need that kind of straightness for this part. If he's in on the joke, it's not funny. And he just plays it so well.
Yeah, and Leslie has the comment about, the Hillary Clinton taking a punch like her, and that's a good joke, but Amy Poehler does a great job of acting as that. Like, that really exemplifies her character through this episode. Sure, she loses it a bit, and there are times when she will fight back, which is great, but there's so much of it that's her trying to convince these arrogant jerks of the beauty and glory of America, even in a small town that's, not as lavish and amazing as they're used to. So it's really a great juxtaposition to see Armisen be able to walk all over her, and her just you see it bubbling under the surface and all the stuff that she wants to say.
And I think this is a rare time where I think this episode benefits from being in the pre-Ben and Chris era. Because I think Ben would be talking Leslie down and basically making her more calm, which is not what you need in this episode.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Chris would be doing. Chris would just be super like a puppy dog, and kind of like Andy, like a puppy dog saying, "Yeah, it's awesome. We do things our way."
Yeah, Chris wouldn't catch the sarcasm either, or even if he did catch it, he'd still just hit it with positivity. When you meet someone with that's negative towards you as a character like Chris is going to believe that his enlightenment and optimism is going to beat out any negativity. So you can be the biggest jerky jerk to him possible, and he's still going to give you respect and the time of day and all that sort of stuff, and try and win you over, kill you with kindness. And I don't think that would have worked for this. You probably could have gotten some mileage out of it, but I think it really does well of it just being the Amy versus Fred and that dynamic.
Even Ron stays out of it. Anne gives a little bit of straight man here and there. April is just doing her own thing, flirting, and Tom is just the Tom was just the happy-go-lucky slave boy, according to them.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Ron sees how pointless this is, which is why he's able to he trusts Leslie anyway, but he's able to just be like, okay, if this costs us our diplomatic relations as the sister city, it's just a title thing. It's what are we actually benefiting from this? This isn't like the ambassador talking to an ambassador, like a president or whatever. This is two Parks Department workers that are coalitions that are coming together. It doesn't matter. So he lets her decide what's going to happen. He's not weighing in on it. He's like, okay, we either have to apologize to them, make it right, or just cancel it and send them home. Whichever one you choose, I'm fine with. You pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's great, Ron. I mean, there are other episodes that feature Ron, but this one didn't really need him, besides just a little bit of head nod and silent encouragement of Leslie.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think the other regular cast member that we have that does the most, I know that April's technically got the B plot of the episode, but I think Tom is the one who has the most to do outside of Leslie, and his stuff is really funny too. It's just no one debases himself like Tom does.
That's true.
So good episode. There, we've talked before, right, about what our favorite Parks and Rec episodes are. Right?
Yeah, I think so. My personal favorite is the Bachelorette party that happens way later.
That's a great episode.
Yeah,
I really like that one. It's hard for me to narrow down. I don't think this is my favorite episode, but this is a very recognizable episode. And it's kind of funny to see how memes change how we view things and regard stuff, because this episode is remembered so well because of that straight to jail scene for me. And there's a lot of other funny things around this, but it's really that's what shines out. That's the gold of this episode, and there's a reason why you're going to see it used. I use that GIF all the time in my chats that I have with other people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it took us 2 weeks to get here. I know last time I came ready to talk about this. but I hope it didn't disappoint. Guys, I hope that you were excited about Sister City. Next time we're going to talk about Brother City. That's all right. We're not going to. Actually, next time, speaking of relatives, I am going to have my son, not Elijah, but my second oldest son, Jack, join us for his podcast debut. He's 10. He loves Sonic. So we're going to talk about the new Paramount Plus TV show Knuckles, which we'll get to it. We'll talk about it, but it's an absurd show, but it's the right kind of absurd. I was surprised at how well some of the really stupid, ridiculous concepts ended up working for me. So
I haven't seen it, but by the time you listen to the next episode, I will have.
Yeah, it's only 6 episodes, and I think they're half-hour episodes anyway.
That's doable. Yeah.
Easy. And it was one of those great shows where it's like, we're just going to put it all out at once. All 6 episodes, just watch them. Go for it.
So, Matt, how do you think that Jack's going to be compared to Elijah as far as unhinged craziness on the podcast?
Much less. He's, even though he's younger, Elijah is just like, he comes up with these ideas as like, where in the world did that come from? Jack, you can like trace the origin of an idea. He's a lot more like me in the way that he's purposely tries to be funny. Mm-hmm. Of all 4 of my kids, he emulates my sense of humor the most, I think. So little me, you're welcome, everyone.
Yeah. I still try to convince my nieces to come on this podcast, but none of them want to. We were celebrating my birthday, and I'm like, all right, what shows are you watching, and do you want to come talk about them? And they all went silent.
I think I only really know Kayla of your nieces. I know that Paul and Laura had another daughter, but I don't think I ever met her, or if I did, it was like in a passing sort of thing. But
and
I didn't know Kayla as a baby. I'm sure she remembers me.
Yeah. Well, and another one. There's 3 of them, not 2 of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember for sure either. So
yeah.
If Brian didn't edit this out and you guys are listening, sorry, I forgot your other kid. It happens. At least you didn't. So that's what's really important.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to trivia. Last week, we talked about our weird neighbors, and one of the weird neighbors was Earl Heineman, who plays Wilson on Home Improvement. And we also talked, I can't remember what we talked about, but we talked about Ted Danson at one point in the episode, and so it made me think, well, there's a movie that Ted Danson and Earl Heineman are in together, and do you know what that movie was? Do you remember, Brian?
No, I don't. Are you asking me? Because you told me, but I forgot.
I did tell you. It's 3 Men and a Little Baby. So Earl Heineman was one of the not the burglars, but like, you know, there's people that are after the baby or after the mother of the baby, and they're like the bad guys of it, henchmen, I guess. Yeah. And so he's one of them. And when we first saw him, I'm like, oh, hey, it's Wilson. But I recognize it because of the voice, not because of the face, because I didn't know what his face looked like. So.
Because the other 3 men besides Ted Danson, isn't it Tom Selleck and Steve Guttenberg?
It is. That is correct. It's a okay movie. If you grew up in the 80s, you probably liked it more than I think I saw it a little bit late in my life, so I was like, yeah, it's fine. Mm-hmm. But my wife likes him. There's actually 2 of them, 3 Men and a Little Baby and 3 Men and a Little Lady, and I think Earl Hyman's only in the first one.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. Well, today's episode is all about Fred Armison. And so here's the trivia about Fred. What performance group was he a part of before he made it big on SNL? He played drums for this group. So what group was Fred Armison the drummer for?
Okay.
There you go. Speaking of which, the fun little fact for you. I think we probably mentioned this before, but Chevy Chase is also a drummer. Did you know he was the drummer for the band Steely Dan before it was called Steely Dan? He left to pursue like comedy and acting, and then they replaced him with a different drummer, and then they changed their name to Steely Dan. So it's essentially he was the drummer for the Steely Dan before they were called that. But
I had no idea. I didn't even know he was a drummer.
He is. There's a chance he might have actually been bassist. For a second.
I didn't know that either.
No, he was a drummer. Okay. I don't know why, like, that jumped in my head, like, maybe that's the wrong thing. No, he was the drummer. So there you go. There's 2 pieces of trivia. One you have to guess. One that's just free. And I'm not even going to make you say Viva Chavez.
Yep.
Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.